Okay. So it's dark this morning because it's too cold for my fluorescent light overhead shop light to actually turn on. So that's what's happening. Brrr, I'm so cold. Brr, brr, brr. I've got my little heater going on near my feet and I'm really cold anyway because it hasn't been going on long enough. I have woken up with, I think, no pain, like no identifiable pain. Bon. So, yay. And I had a good sleep last night. I did wake up briefly at 4:30 a.m., but went right back to sleep. So that's good too. I am a little bit uncomfortable. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so everything's good and well, and it's the weekend, and I forgot to update everybody about actually submitting my forms for disability pension, which I have done like a week ago or something. And I am continuing to work on the household project as like an organization project of our finances, and it's really in depth. So I am I'm working with an accountant, and he's teaching me a lot about bookkeeping, and it seems to be developing into like, it feeds into some of my obsessions. Like anytime that I see a table format, like a grid, anything with a lot of squares in it, I have to fill them all. I don't feel right without each square having its meaning mapped out. And I also really like tracking pennies. And I've been thinking about it, and because several times during the project, it's been like, oh, we don't want to count that. That's just like 2 cents. And I'm like, yeah, but 2 cents over a year, over the last 10 years that we haven't claimed it. Oh my God, how much money is that? Right? So like, there's a part of me that wants every single detail accounted for, and pretty much in anything that I do, even my scholarly work. I still use, I can't remember if it was my master's degree or my PhD courses. In one of my methods courses, one of my teachers introduced the idea of using grids to make sure that, you know, we're paying attention to all the parts of a project. And my mind just exploded, right? And I immediately made it way too complicated. And I'm getting back to simpleness. But yeah, so that's something I'm really enjoying, is every single detail, every single penny. And I thought, okay, well, you know, others around you are not as concerned about this like $10 when you really count it up, right? As you are. So where does this come from? And then I had a little rant in my head, a little conversation in my head, like we all do, played out a scenario. And I heard my character in my mind say, I was raised on pennies. Every once in a while, my mind comes up with a piece of factual evidence from my past that actually does explain how I am now. And I will tell you the story of counting pennies. So in my childhood, my grandmother, she was a bookkeeper actually for a while. And then things happened and problems happened, and she had to change professions. And I think she went straight into waitressing. And then she ended up working 2 waitressing jobs full time and was so busy. And this is the grandmother I've told you about, where she just did good, and she stopped waitressing finally in her 70s because she broke her foot going through the double doors from the dining room to the kitchen, and someone had opened up the grease trap to clean it and then got distracted for 2 seconds, and she came barreling through the door and kaboom. Anyway, but that was a good thing for her because then she had to go to a convalescence home to fully heal. And I think it was maybe the first time in her life, in her adulthood maybe, that she was truly, gently, and thoroughly taken care of and given the support and love that she needed all of that time. Anyway, I'm going to tell more stories about my grandmother, but the pennies, yes, I was raised on pennies. So my grandmother would come over after her shifts to my mom and I. And my grandmother was my father's mother that I'm talking about. And he was away, and she would come and pour out all her tips from her apron. She would come directly from work with her apron full of coin, and she would pour it out on the table. And she would sort it out, and she would count it out penny by penny. And she would make sure that my mother knew how much there was. And she would leave it there, and she would give it to her, all the coins, right? And this is a practice that she had for my father too. When he was back in the picture, she would always give her coin. And then even years later, sometimes I would sit at the dining room table at her house, and she and I would sit together, and she taught me how to count, and she taught me how to count out the pennies into groups of 10, and then to groups of 10, so that we would roll up the money over the weekend, and then on Monday morning she would take me to the bank and we would deposit it. And yeah, so that's how I learned how to count pennies, literally by counting pennies. They don't even exist anymore. Pennies to count with. But those pennies raised me. They fed me. Those pennies that other people would collect in jars forever. Those pennies, they're worth it.